Anyone got successful execution of the code? Yeah, should be working. Again, if you're interested, you can copy from this machine. Okay, it's working code. Okay, let's move forward. You realize that using this validation, we can validate the length of the credit card, but we don't validate that all characters are digits. Besides that, sometimes we also have fields as email addresses, right? How we're going to validate email addresses? That's even more complicated, right? Because email addresses may contain numbers and digits. I mean, numbers and alphabetic characters. So validation is a little bit more complex. Okay, but we're going to cover that too. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, so we've done this. Let's move forward. This string, this actually code illustrates that we have a function which allows us to make string capitalized. Basically, this function to uppercase increase all letters to the capital. Okay, we have corresponding to the lower, which minimize the all letters to the lower. Okay, definitely it's not applicable to digits because digits do not have lower and the capital case. Okay, we are not going to execute this. Basically, remember that we have some functions which will allow us to work with the things. This code actually illustrates the concept of adding counting number of characters in a field. For example, you have a field, you type the characters, and it automatically calculates the number of characters. Not automatically, but you have to press the button. This might be very useful when you're testing you're executing some test cases. For example, let's assume you're working for Microsoft, and Microsoft releases new version of WordPad. Okay, and the WordPad old version says you can specify the name of the file when it comes to saving the file as maximum 256 characters. Okay, the name of the file can be maximum, say, 256 characters. But with the new word, they say the maximum number is 512 characters. So it means that we have to create a couple of test cases, which one will insert 512 characters, another will insert 511, another 513, and so on. Bottom line is you have to generate string which will contain 512 characters. Doing it manually, counting it manually, that's a headache. Okay, so you can definitely do something in Microsoft Word and say count number of characters. That's painful. Okay, it will be much nicer if we have JavaScript code which will have a text field, and as soon as you type it will tell how many characters you inserted. This code does that, but every time you need to get a count, you have to push button. This is not convenient. We can do it automatically. So essentially what happens is that I have two text fields, and we can copy and paste this code into Notepad and execute it. So we keep typing, and then I have an event which is on key up. You see this is a red line. As I told you before, every time we work with the browser, we can generate tons of different events. And most of this event dies silently. But some of the events, we can subscribe to them saying, you know, when this event is fired, we can do something useful. In this particular case, I'm subscribing to this event key up. Essentially, when you type any letter or use your keyboard, you generate two events. One event when you press a button, that's on button down, and one event when you on button up. Okay. Now, these two events are pretty close to each other. But this one is a little bit safer because when you release the button, you guarantee that you type something before that. Okay. Besides that, you don't have synchronization problem because when you press the key down, the letter might not be printed yet, but the event is fired. Okay. So for synchronization point of view, it's much better to use on key up. And then I'm saying every time user releases that, basically every time user types something, go ahead and then execute this, count the number of characters. Let's do that. Let's create this code and see how it's working. Whatever you need. Okay, for example, if you need to generate string with 52 characters, no problem. Just keep typing until the counter reaches 52, the bottom counter. And even if I delete, it reflects accurately. and it's done automatically. So generating 256 characters, a piece of cake. Okay, try to do it manually.
You don't have a button.
I don't have button because button, usually we created button when you like to evaluate to do something, right? In this case, I'm saying every time text in this text field changes, the upper text is changing, do calculation. Okay, you can do it with the button, but that will be very inconvenient because every time you type something, click a button. Do something, click a button. In this case, this happens kind of on fly. So what you need to do here, you need to go and select all string, and that will be string which consists of 256 characters. If you need it 512, no problem. Go keep typing. Okay, it's very convenient, and that's the way, you know, some engines, they allow you to send short letters to the other users, like LinkedIn. LinkedIn gives you possibility to type a small letter, and every time you type a letter, it gives you the number of characters remaining. How many letters? How many characters are left? Okay, until you reach the maximum. This is done using JavaScript. Okay. Again, this code you can use in your testing for your testing purposes. Does it work? Should work. Okay. So let's move forward. In this case, just making sure that the code is working. Okay. Again, this happens because we subscribe to the OnKey app. Substring, these are functions which allow us to get a portion of the string, basically chop the string. And we have a substring, or we have a slice also function. We can specify starting position, how many characters we need, and this function will return as the portion of the string. The slicing works exactly the same way, except that you specify starting position, end position. Instead of number of characters, you specify end position. Well, I'm not going to work with this anymore. Next topic is arrays. Essentially, so far we created a lot of variables, and these variables were capable of storing only one value at a time. Okay, this type of variables, arrays, are capable of storing several items at a time. Okay, that's why they call lists or arrays. And here's the example of that. I created a temporary array, and I put these values into this array. So what happens is that now this temp array contains 3 values at the same time: orange, apple, and peaches. And you can retrieve individual values out of this array. This is possible. All items, whatever you put here, they are indexed. Basically, you can access these items by their relative by their index, by their position. It starts from 0, yes. As everything else in the programming world, indexing starts with a 0. So orange has index 0, apple has index 1, and peach has index 2. So if you if you try to access temp array with the index 5, 10, or 4, that will be an error. Okay, that's a serious error, but that's typical because people actually in real life we're counting with a 1 base index. We think this is number 1, 2, and 3, but in programming we actually have 0 base indexing. That's the source of many mistakes and errors. Okay, it happens. You have to be aware of that. Okay, you're exceeding the index of the array. That's the error you'll get. Okay, so this function, which is allowing us to split anything which we like, and then when we split that, when we actually chop some string, we get multiple multiple chops, and then we can populate immediately these chops, put these chops into the array. So essentially cutting operation here. We're not going to discuss that because we don't have much time, unfortunately. So let's move forward. This code allows us to iterate through the array. We have a loop here, and then we iterate until we reach the end of the array, which gives the length, actually gives how many elements you have in an array, and then you basically print. This is the syntax for printing individual item in an array. We use square brackets here, okay? And within the brackets we specify the index. And the index goes from 0, because this is the first element, until we reach the last element in the array. So in that case, we just simply print that. So this loop will print all these elements vertically. Okay. So no need to go that, and then we're splitting the strings. We skip this. We also can revert strings. So this is also a popular question which is asked on interview. assuming that we don't have a function which will reverse the string, actually reversing the reading from the back, how are you going to implement that? Okay, so the algorithm is common. Which language you will write, it's up to you, but the algorithm remains the same. So essentially you chop the string, whatever string you have, into individual letters, okay? And then starting to iterate from the back of the array, like we do here, we're starting from the length -1, because this is the last element of the array. Remember, array starts from 0, so the last element of the array will be length -1. And then until we reach 1, until we reach 0, because that will be the very first element of the array, we decrement that. We're going backwards, n minus minus instead of plus plus. And then keep adding the individual letters, and that will get the reverse string. So this is the common algorithm. Definitely there is another algorithm which allows us to do half of the steps. Instead of iterating the whole array, we can iterate half of the array, but that's advanced. We're not going there. So this is one. Next thing which I'm going to show you is that how we're going to validate the credit card. Remember, we're talking about the situation when we can verify that a number which we entered instead of credit card, in the credit card field, contains 16 digits, right? But they're actually not digits, but characters. We cannot validate that user didn't enter the alphabetic string instead of numbers, right? In that case, our validator will fail, correct? It will not show an error. I demonstrated that for you. Remember, when I took 16 characters, some of them were of characters, not numbers, then validator did not show an error. In this case, we're actually going to write a validator which will validate that. So what happens is that I actually get the user input, whatever user inserted in the text field, and chop by individual characters. And after that, I'm going to get each individual character ASCII code. And then if it turns out that the ASCII code is not within this range between 48 and 57, which is actually range between 0 to 9, these digits, then I'm going to show alert box. Okay, and then this statement break will terminate the loop prematurely. Okay, but there is no need, if we encounter the very first non-numeric character, there's no need to to validate the rest, because we already have an error, right? That's why I'm saying break, which will terminate this loop. This loop actually, not this one, this loop. Okay. A little bit more more complex, but in this case we will detect any character which is not digit. Plus, we also have to write another logic for being 16 characters. In this case, it's shown for 3, but we have to validate for 16 digits. In that case, there will be complete validation of a credit card. Definitely, we do not validate it. This is a valid credit card. What we can validate, we can use also, we can check a checksum, okay, if it's valid credit card number, but we cannot say if from a bank point of view, this is actually a credit card which we can make purchase with. Okay, for that reason, we have to check against the bank database. But we can at least check that this number contains 16 digits, and we can also check the checksum. Checksum is not implemented here, but we can do that, okay. Any questions? Okay. This is actually done very complex way. It's very hard way, right? Because we have to add additional logic for 16 characters check. We can simplify that, okay? But in order to simplify, we have to read something else, something extra. This is actually portion of the code, portion of the HTML code. This is the second half of it. So if you like to try it at home, you have to basically combine these two slides together and create one generic one, okay? So these are events, which is not complete list by any chance, okay? It basically illustrates we have a lot of events here. Yeah, someone actually got it. Okay. We have also a sneeze event. No, it's just joking, okay? Just making sure you are not sleeping, okay? But you should realize that there is a lot of events which are generated without our consent, so we don't think about that, but nevertheless they are generating. And then if we like to subscribe on some of the events, we can do that. And then subscribing that, we can act accordingly, okay? And again, this is not complete list, okay? This is about events. Any questions? No, all straightforward? Okay. So we skip this combo box selection because this is basically illustration how we can react on the, when users changes the combo box selection. Okay, date and time. We can operate with the date and time, and JavaScript supports that. We can get the current date and time from the computer, computer where the script is running. Old version of JavaScript actually provides the year value for the year minus 1900. For example, in that case, if, for example, you try to get the current year, it will give you 112 rather than 2012. So in that case, you have to add 1900. JavaScript, which is implemented on the recent versions of the browser, they don't have this problem. You don't need to add 1900. So where you can use this, you can use in a JavaScript putting the, in a pages which contains time-sensitive information. For example, if you put this code into your HTML page, say document, right? This document was last modified on, and then last modify. You will see this phrase, right? This document was last modified on. This is not done manually. This is done using JavaScript. This small actually code snippet will do it for you. What happens is that JavaScript retrieves information about the last modification of the current document from the computer and then shows it to you. Okay? So if you write this will not work on emulator, by the way. So this will work only if you type in Notepad, create a document in Notepad, and then every time you make modification, that will be reflected. Okay? So this is very useful and it's widely used. Okay? It's not very difficult to do. It's basically a couple of lines of code. Okay? But it will actually eliminate necessity to update this all the time. Okay, very useful.
What about if you want to check a date from the server?
Sorry?
If you want to check a date from the server?
This is actually shows the where document is located. For example, if this document is located on a server, that will be server time. Okay? So, and then if they modify, then that will be shown on according to the server time, not the local time.
But for example, it could be that it was modified the document yesterday and they upload to the server today. So what date is going to take?
Okay, when you updated document yesterday and put on a server today, what the computer is going to show you. Okay, if you go to the document properties, right mouse click and say properties, what it will show in a modified date and time. I believe it will show yesterday. Okay? I believe so. Because modification is different than creation, and but if not, if you, for example, change that manually, then it will be shown whatever computer shows. Because JavaScript is actually goes and straightforwardly takes it from that information from the machine. Okay, it does not do anything else. Basically, it goes to look at the document properties, whatever it is, and that's it's coming from properties. Okay, nowhere else. Okay, not from registry, not from some other places. Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay. So field validation, which we're talking about, we're going again to field validation because this is a very important subject. That's where JavaScript mostly used. Okay, for validating user input, and then the field validation is, in most of the cases, is validated using regular expressions. Okay, regular expressions, you probably heard that before, or if not, you are going to hear that many times. The abbreviation is regex, which stands for reg and x, regular expressions. So what happens is that there's a language, the separate language, which is describing pattern for the text. Okay, basically this language for describing patterns. This is an abstract language. It means that it's not existing alone. It's not implemented alone. It's basically a concept. But this concept is implemented in many other programming languages, including JavaScript. And this regular expression makes life much easier. And implemented in programming languages, implemented in databases, and whenever it's possible. Okay, so because it allows us to reach our goals much easier. For example, remember what I mentioned, that validating of user email address. You cannot validate user email address using these arrays or whatever functions. It's not possible. But what we can say that user, you know that if you look at the visually, if you inspect some string, you can tell if this is an email address or not. How? Because you are comparing something which you expect, right? And you're comparing actually to the pattern, to some specific syntax, right? You're saying that it should be some string, some word, right? And maybe some punctuation characters here, like dot or whatever, dash, and then maybe some words too. And then it should follow by @ symbol. That's a must. After @ symbol, you may have some words here, okay, and then followed by the dot, and then followed by couple of characters, maybe say 1 or 2 like characters, right? Something like this. Oh, actually 3, not 2, 3. Okay? So this is actually the pattern which you compare the given email string against it. And you do it very efficiently, but you should be able to do it programmatically. Otherwise, you will not be able to validate user input. And that's a language which describes this pattern. That's what we call regular expressions. And then, well, definitely can go and, it's a separate subject of itself, so we can talk for several classes about regular expression and that. But I'm going to demonstrate it for you. Okay. So what happens is that this application, this screenshot is basically JavaScript regular expression validator, which is located on this address. Let's do that. I believe I have it saved. Let me see. Regex tester. Yeah, I do have it. Okay. So you can copy and paste code from the site which is indicated, but this is, if you save it as HTML, it will look like this. So what happens is that there is a sample text here given, okay? And I would like to find zip code, maybe assuming this is a zip code, and this is a phone number, local phone number without a prefix, okay, without area code. And I like to grab these values from here. This text might be huge, maybe megabytes or gigabytes in size, may contain zip codes, may contain phone numbers, addresses, whatever. Using this regular expression, I can fish out all of them, okay? Or email addresses as well, okay? So regular expression using special syntax, which actually given in the slides to come, in the next slides, but I'm going to demonstrate for you now. So \d, lowercase d, stands for digits, okay? So I'm going to say, find digits, and then I'm saying search. And what it says is that D found at the position 97. This is the position 97. Okay, this number 1. Here, this is the position 97. It found it. So it does not return you, always position 97. What I can do, I can say return me the whole digit, return me whatever before digit, stands before digit, after digit. There's a huge, many possibilities here. This is basically simple proof of concept, okay, that this is working. But I'm not looking for 1 digit, because if I like to read global match, okay, search. Yeah, it's anyway, it's that. So what I'm saying is that if I'm looking for a specific 1 digit, it will return me these 5 matches here, and 3 matches here, and 4 matches here, right? But I'm not interested in that. I'm saying I'm looking for zip code, and zip code contains 5 digits, okay? So it means that I'm looking for 5 digits. This will be not valid because it does not contain 5 uninterrupted digits. This one is containing, okay? So that's why I have to say I'm looking for 5 digits. So I have to essentially copy and paste 5 times, right? And say search, and again, it's found in position 97, correct? But let's assume I'm looking for phone number. What phone number is? This is this one, right? I'm saying 3 digits, followed by a dash, followed by 3, 4, right? Like this, right? So I'm saying search, and you see the position change. In this case, this number is skipped because this does not follow this pattern. 3 digits followed by a dash, followed by 4 digits. This one does. Okay, so this is a very inconvenient, putting a lot of back digits. There is a shortcut form for it. I'm saying I'm looking for 3 digits, exactly 3 digits, which is followed by a dash, which is followed by 4 digits. Okay, and if I say search, it will find 146. Okay, this is simply a form. Now I'm saying I'm looking for 3 digits in this case. Say search. It goes back to this one, Okay, I'm saying I'm looking for 5 digits. Again, it will give me 97. But if I'm looking for 6 digits, I may not find it. Okay, search, not found. Okay, because there is no 6-digit number in this. So this gives me pretty much flexibility. I'm saying, what if I'm flexible? I like to be flexible. I'm saying I'm looking for a number which contains between 2 and 5 digits. Okay, I can do that and say minimum 2, maximum 6. Okay, I'm looking for that. So if I search that, it will find this, because this satisfies minimum 2. Okay, maximum is not reached as for 5, but at least minimum 2. Okay, and you can do that. You can combine anything you like here. Also, you can look for example, you're looking for specific words. For example, you're saying I'm looking for capitalized word. I mean capitalized word. Say A. Say A to Z. Okay, which is followed by 3 lowercase letters. Okay, which is A to Z lowercase, and that will be, again, I'm looking for specifically 3. Okay, let's see where it finds it. Position 0. This one is matching it. Okay, so it can find all matches. It's basically the illustration of concept, and it's a very powerful technique, and it's used in many other cases. So sooner or later you have to learn this regular expression language, and this is also in Selenium, I believe, right, and a QTP too. Okay, when it comes to the validation, you have to use regular expression to validate the output. Okay.
Those values have the regular expression?
Sorry?
Those values have the regular expression?
These are not values. Basically, these are special symbols and characters which have special meaning for regular expression. So what this A to Z means, it means that here, this one. No, what it means is I'm looking for A to Z. I'm looking for one character which is within this range, between A and Z. But one capital character. This is not the range, this is one character. If I'm looking for A to M, I can do that. In that case, if the word starts with a Z, it will be excluded. Okay, will not match. Okay, and also if I'm looking for a number which starts with which should have only first digit, for example 5, I'm saying actually between 5 and 6. Okay, this is the number which starts with either 5 or 6. Okay, which is followed by, for example, any number 0, 9. Say for example 3 digits. Any digits, but it should start with a 5 or 6. Okay, that's a language to describe this situation, and you have pretty much flexibility. Okay, you can also say, you can combine anything. You can create whatever you're looking for, but also you can say that I'm looking for these digits, but before this digit should not be any letters, or should be any other characters. Or this should not be followed by something, or should be followed by something. You have pretty much flexibility what you like to do. Okay, anything you like, you can do that, in any given text. And it's very useful for validation, because sometimes when you run the application, typically when the application returns date and time, right? Let's assume you have an application, testing is with Selenium, and at the top of the web page, it shows the current date and time. Okay, say today is this and this and this. You cannot hard code that value, because every time you run your script, that value will be changing, right? But you have to nevertheless to validate that. And let's assume you have in this following format, for example, Monday, October 3rd, let's say 2012, for example, okay? Let's assume the date comes in this format. Then you say that the regular expression for this will be the following. You have capitalized one letter, right, followed by A to Z 2 times, exactly 2 times, right, which is followed by space, because there should be space, right, and then followed by A to Z 1 character, followed by A to Z lowercase twice, which is followed by backslash, space, which is, no, wait a sec, 3, October 3, right? Which should be followed by the digit. And how many digits we have? We have either 1 or 2, right? 1 or 2. This is not strictly correct because if it shows October 99, this is not valid. You have to have several cases like this, but they're actually traceable. You can create that, which is followed by backslash s, which is space, which is followed by digits. But which digits? We should have 2, 0, right? At least.
Yeah.
So we say, which is followed by 2, 0, and then followed by digits, which is exactly 2. Okay? Because assuming that you are running script this year, next year, whatever, you are pretty much flexible in that. You don't care about what year it is. Okay? This is the this is not complete one, by the way. Okay? We have to fine tune it, but this shows you that you can write a regular expression and instruct Selenium to verify, or any other automation program, to validate this output. Okay? In that case, it doesn't matter when you run, what date and time you run, you'll be able to validate that. Otherwise, you cannot do that. Okay? Because that you cannot envisage which value it will be there shown. Okay?
For example, in day when you're saying 3, that is 1, 2, it is possible to put 1 to 30, 31.
Where is that?
And the second line.
Oh, this one?
Yeah. Is it possible?
Essentially, this is a little bit more complex. What you can say is, if the first number is 1, second number might be between 1, followed by 0, 9, right? Any number, because that will be, or it can be any number between 1 and 9, right? Because we don't have October 0. Either this one, or if it's 2, you can always have any 0, right? But if it's 3, you have only one possibility, 0 or 1, right? So you have to combine these 4 test cases, okay? And indeed, it should be done that way, okay? Because you have, I think, you may say either 1 digit or no digits here, because combining these 2 test cases together, right? But this one definitely, it's also falls into the one. You can combine these 3 together. But this one is a special, because if you have first digit 3, you have only 2 possibilities. Either second one is 0 or 1. Otherwise, you have invalid date. Okay? You have to validate that. Okay? Most probably, it should follow the format, but to be on a test case, to be able to validate that, you have to write this. Okay? Same with the year. You can, flexible with the years too. So you can say 201, and then you are okay for another 8 years. Okay, with the script. Okay, yeah, this is done that way. Okay, and then you realize, besides validating the user dates and whatever, there are multiple, numerous ways to, numerous other places when you can use a regular expression for validation purposes. Okay, make sense? Any questions? Okay. Let's round up now, okay, because that's too much information suddenly for you. So, yeah, this is essentially showing the characters and what they're meaning, okay. This is not complete list by any chance, okay. They're pretty illustrating the complexity of this language, but this is very powerful language, okay, very, very powerful, and then you should master it, okay. That's pretty much it. Let's finish. Okay, we'll meet next time, next Friday, and we'll start SQL.